Call this meeting to order of September 24th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tim, would you lead us, please? Mr. Kelly.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment. If anybody would like to come up for public comment, please state your name and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Tim Kelly, 62 Westview. It's been 6 months, half a year, since we came out of our last budget setting period. During that budget cycle, it became abundantly clear that we needed to do two things going forward. One, work closely with any significant departments that present systemic cost challenges, starting with the largest. And two, avoid any new capital programs that would significantly add to the town's debt load, beyond the occasional paving program or new fire truck. I'm giving you the short version tonight because, anyway, if this doesn't sound familiar, go back and rewatch a game tape from the April 1st meeting. Mm-hmm. In terms of systemic cost challenges, you need to be proactive with any department that seeks annual operating increases above the inflation rate or budget guardrails. It's very hard to fix certain cost or expense issues during a 5-day budget planning cycle. So you need to start now in order to inspect what you expect. We all know how easy it is to be distracted by ribbon-cutting events, the crisis of the week, and employee turnover. In terms of the town's debt burden, it is currently programmed to grow 30% over the next several years, even if we don't add anything. And of course, in 18 months, there will be another property reval with direct impact on Farmington taxpayers. At this point, we should not set up any ad hoc infrastructure or building committees until we have had sufficient time to digest the outcome of our current debt load commitments. It's time to go on a debt diet. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Kat, anybody online?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right. Going once, going twice. All right, we will close public comment. Keith.
Agenda item D1, I make a motion to review the next step for goals 4 and 6 in the attached Town of Farmington strategic plan.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Kathy, you guys said you're going to move down.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you have in your agenda packet, there are currently 2 goals included in the strategic plan where no action has been taken thus far. The first one is to establish an ad hoc town council subcommittee to work with town staff on streets and sidewalks, our town ordinance. And the second one is goal 6, is to provide needed support to ensure that the Farmington Fire Station Building Committee moves forward and receives the appropriate staffing. So it's to establish a fire station building committee. Additionally, there are 2 other goals in the strategic plan that were considered priority 2 goals. Thus, no action was expected to be taken. One was about the future of Parsons property, that's goal 1, and goal 9 was the construction of new Meadow Road sidewalks, with the construction beginning in the spring of 2026. So that's where we are right now, so I think tonight to have some discussion on these 2 goals and see where we're going.
Okay, great. We'll open it up. Sarah, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so in terms of the goals 4 and 6, what are kind of the next steps that you would recommend we do in order to start the process on each one of those goals, implementing them, and sort of maybe give an overview for the public again as to why we initiated these goals goals in the beginning and what we're looking to do with the committees themselves.
Sure. Well, the first one, goal 4, is the sidewalks, streets and sidewalks. And as you know, I've been talking about it for a long time. It's been on the strategic plan, and it's usually pushed out. But it's one of the things that we do get a ton of comments about and questions about the sidewalk. And I think it's two-phased. One is the maintenance of existing sidewalks and the building of new sidewalks. So it's two-pronged. And I think there's a couple of things going on with it, is that, one, I don't think the public actually knows what the ordinance says and how it reads and what the law actually is. So I think that's the first thing. And I think the second thing is that, is the council interested about taking any change of policy direction about what the ordinance is? And my first thing would be is that I think we need to establish an ad hoc committee, and my recommendation would be somewhere along the lines of, I think we need to survey the public and find out, first of all, I think we need to educate the public. And then the second thing is that I think we need to survey the public about what they understand, because the perception I get right now is that you would think everyone wants sidewalks. I know that that's not the case, or they want it, but they don't want to pay for it. So I think that we need to, I would recommend setting up an ad hoc committee that would work with a survey committee that would help come up with some questions, and also kind of an education campaign too about sidewalks. And Kat, maybe you can speak a little bit, that we've done this quite a bit.
Yes, if you remember, after the first referendum for the high school and before the second committee was formed, we did do a survey ad hoc committee where we reached out to the public, kind of got the temperature, got some feedback. We also did this prior to forming the 1928 building committee. An ad hoc town council committee was formed. They went out with the survey, kind of said, here's what we're thinking, here's what the potential uses are. And even though it wasn't finalized at the time, some kind of loose financial impact of keeping the 28 buildings. So we've kind of gone out in the past to get the temperature of the public before moving forward with actually accomplishing the goals.
So that's kind of where I'm thinking in general, maybe about the sidewalks. I think we really need to kind of start moving on this, because we are getting more and more comments about it and different things. And there's definitely, to my view, that there's not an understanding of the public about what the ordinance actually says. And I think until we get clarity on that, and also, do we want to collectively, do you want to change policy direction based on what the ordinance is at this point in time? And I don't think you can really do that until you get a flavor of, is the public willing to pay if that's the change, or is the council willing to pay? And so that's where that is. The Fire Station Building Committee, that's, again, something that I would say is that, I think another type of ad hoc committee could potentially be something that would be of value. I think that we have a facility study that has been done, but I think that this ad hoc committee would review the facility study. They'd review the cost associated for the fire stations. They could work with the fire chiefs on the specifics of their departments, help the council and the fire people create a statement of needs, recommend somewhat of a budget, look at all different aspects of the fire stations, and try to put something together for the council. And the next steps would be the council would have a statement of needs and then charge a committee. So I think there's still some legwork that could be done to help the council when they get to the point of establishing a fire station building committee. So that, again, would be maybe where I would go right now at that time, is maybe trying to create 2 ad hoc committees. And typically what they would be is that would be 2 town council people on each one, and then we'd have some staff people on it. On the fire station one, I would put the fire chiefs on it too, the 3 fire chiefs. So that would be kind of where I could start the discussion.
All right. Patty, you have any questions as of now?
Thanks, Joe. So in terms of the ad hoc committees, I mean, my recollection, for example, with the survey one for the high school, because I was on the council at that time, there was some cost associated with it because we hired an outside survey firm. And I think there's value in that because you get more accurate results because they're more skilled at knowing what they need to do. Has there been any evaluation of like what costs may be associated with ad hoc
What have we
committees?
paid for in the past?
I want to say, and don't quote me on this, it was probably between $4,000 and $8,000. And it's a statistically accurate survey. We've done a phone survey, which is a little more expensive. We've done an online survey, but having a professional survey done, doing an RFP, getting a company on board is the best way to get that statistical accuracy.
I do agree. I think it's important to, because I think sometimes if you have stuff online, the people who are interested are the ones who respond.
Right.
Instead of the town. And I think, to Kathy's point, I think if we were to change anything with sidewalks, there would be a significant cost involved changing the ordinance. But I know, I agree that we also need an education campaign because I've talked to people who just don't understand that the sidewalk in front of their house is their responsibility. And then there's the people across the street who say things like, I'm so glad you have the sidewalk, but I'm so glad I get to use it. So there's also that. I think sometimes people feel a little, I don't know,
And
unfair.
Yeah, and then there's also the aspect of the sidewalk being kind of like the public good sidewalk, the ones that go to the schools, the ones that maybe lead to the trails. Like, that's kind of a different thing than having a neighborhood sidewalk,
Right.
and who's paying for that? And that would be a policy decision and a change, too.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thanks.
Brian?
Yeah, I was just curious to know about the education component of it, because I think before we send out a survey, we need to educate people on really what the survey is about and what the implications might be of that. What are you thinking of for an education campaign? How long might that take before we even consider doing the survey?
Right.
So people can have information.
Right. And I think twofold, and Kat, you were more involved in some of these surveys, is that I think we definitely hold like live meetings where people can come and we could do some education on that. And then, I don't know, in the survey questions, sometimes they have information like, did you know, or this is how it works now, that type of thing, to try to, when they read the answers, do they understand that you're responsible for your sidewalk in front of your house, you're responsible for the maintenance of it.
Yeah, the survey itself is also an educational tool. It's kind of prefacing each of the questions with, currently, this is what happens. Would you be open to they can kind of build off of that, but using it as an education piece. We did that a lot with the 1928 building and kind of the history of why it was separated from the high school project, what's proposed to be kept. There was like one of those pictures of the highlighted sections that the options were to keep certain areas of the building. So you can use this survey itself as a communication tool, but like Kathy said too, potentially public info sessions, kind of really getting people involved and educated.
Yeah, I think that's real important so that we get really good information, because if you're not educated on what the subject matter is, it'll be tough to get accurate information back.
Yeah, and I think we've heard it's a more vocal group that is interested in the sidewalks. But I do have a feeling that, like, all of a sudden you realize not everyone wants a sidewalk. They may not be vocal about it, but even people that don't want to pay for it, they really don't want sidewalks really in town. A lot of sidewalks, a lot more sidewalks in town. And so that will be interesting to see too. Is that still the case, or is it not the case? I don't know.
And as I'm thinking, one of the groups you might want to invite to the table is the Bike Safety and Pedestrian Advisory Council.
Right.
Because they are really ingrained in the entire transportation of people and bicycle, and they have a lot of information that would really be helpful.
Right, I agree.
Do you believe do you think they might be sitting at the table, or at least consider having them there?
I mean, we could.
Yeah.
I think that slants the group, though. I'd like to have their input.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to look to try to have a neutral survey come out, what people want, their bias is probably going to be more so in one direction.
Oh, well, wanting to support
Supports, yeah.
walkers, yeah.
The sidewalks. I think they should be part of the whole equation and also.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have a lot of information that they
Right.
can bring to the table and, you
Right.
know,
Well, and one of the things.
they can
Ryan-
help disseminate information and surveys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we've talked about before is this whole kind of thought of having, and we did it with the Meadow Road sidewalk, but which by grant funding, is having sidewalks that get to the rails to trail system, get you to, and that's the bike committee and the trail
Yeah.
system. So I think they're all part of that equation for sure.
Great.
Dave, you have anything?
The size of the ad hoc committee, I know you said 2 people on the council and then staff. I mean, do you think that it should be maybe 4 from the council? Like, I mean, sidewalks touch everybody, right? I mean, you know, everybody here has we have sidewalks, neighbors come to us and ask us about, you know, the sidewalks and so forth. And I was just wondering if just 2 or maybe more council participation at that level would be helpful on the sidewalks. On the facility study, I can kind of see where it's, you know, fairly technical, you know, type of thing. You know, you're going to work with staff and you know, kind of hone in on the building program. And it's definitely, you already have the facility, you know, conditions report. So that's a big step forward. So I was just curious if.
I mean, again, we typically have not done that for ad hoc. It's a policy decision, but if you're going to have 4, then you're having council meetings because you have 4 members of the council. So to me, if were going to do that, I wouldn't do an ad hoc committee. I'd just have it be the council.
Okay.
Amy, any questions?
No. I agree with what you just said, though, that I wouldn't want, I think 2's good, personally.
Usually that they do the leg work of the group, but, you know,
Yeah.
The
whatever
council's
the
still gonna make
council.
the action. in the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Any questions, Keith?
No, I am a citizen who has bothered the town staff about sidewalks in the past, and I think this is a good idea. And I think it's twofold. We need to be informed by the public so that we have an understanding of what the ordinance that they want is. But also, I mean, everybody who's follows any of the town Facebook pages or anything, there is a sidewalk debate on a bi-monthly basis, I want to say, and there's always somebody who is sure that they know the right answer, and it's almost always wrong. Or sometimes it's right, but, you know, the fact that the repair is on the residents, not just the shoveling, and, you know, there was somebody who was arguing that, no, the town will fix it for you, and they have preferred vendors, and a lot of that information is just not correct. So, no, I think that it makes a lot of sense. There was one note I had a question on, but I think it may have been answered. No, I think it's good on that.
All right. Well, just throw my 2 cents in. Well, I do agree with Tim that, you know, we've been pushing taxes up, and foreseeably, could be, like you said, at 30% over X amount of years, that we need to obviously relook at things. But knowing that for the last, 4 or 5 years, I sat here, the fire chiefs have been here every time asking us to go ahead and figure this out about the firehouses. It's not going away, and I think if we keep on pushing it back, those issues may get too far past their life and would be in for a bigger cost. And obviously, I do see and read and talk to the people about the sidewalks, and I feel like we do need to start addressing, talking, and educating our people, our citizens, about who's responsible if we're looking to do A, B, or C, who's going to pay for it, and try to get a good feel for what they're looking for. As far as Dave's suggestion, I think, you know, we probably just stick with the 2. You know, obviously, we filter the information through our counterparts as we talk, you know, and go through it all the time. So you, obviously, if whoever's on the committee will, hey, you know, so-and-so called me up, and I'll relay it over to Dave or to Patty or whatever, just to share that information, just to keep it small working. So like you said, if we go into a bigger group, then we're having more council meetings instead of just hitting the issues that we need to hit.
I have one. Town staff. So I see on our strategic plan, almost everything has been started, our priority 1 stuff. So adding to ad hocs, given that there's 1928 high school still, we still have to go back for all the reimbursement stuff. There's a million other things that you guys are handling. Adding to ad hoc committees is something that town staff is able to, like, shoulder the burden of.
Yeah, I think I think that we're definitely getting close to a fine line.
Yeah.
I think we're getting close to a fine line. But I think that with the ad hoc committees and having a survey company for something like that it's not as heavy of a lift than really debating policy. It's better to, I think it's more about getting information in, which is an easier staff, I think, load. I think for the fire stations, I think that evaluating things that have already been done and having some discussion, and one of the things, again, with the ad hoc committee is to build consensus between the political parties at the ad hoc level, so that when it comes to the council, there's consensus most of the time. And I think that's an easier lift, too. So I think at this point in time, we did kind of come up with what a timeline would be for this, and I think if the council was agreeable to something like that, we have to come up with the charges for the ad hoc committee. So we said potentially we're in, what month are we in now? We're at the end of September. By the end of the year, that we'd appoint the ad hoc committees. So by the end of the year, we'd appoint ad hoc committees. They would solicit proposals, that would take a month or so. We'd prepare questions, 2 or 4 months, and we'd probably review the survey results. So probably in the middle of 2025, halfway through, we'd have the ad hoc committee done.
Make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation. But that's somewhat aggressive, but we could do that. Same thing with the fire stations, create the charge for the ad hoc committee, appoint the ad hoc committee before the end of the year. Ad hoc committee would begin their work in January of 2025, and we're talking between another 6 months again to come up with reviewing the report, visit the fire stations, review the cost of the items, work with the fire chiefs, create a statement of needs, charge the full committee, make sure we look at all the other avenues with fire stations, different things like that, that you have time to evaluate all that. So we're talking probably, a 6-month period to decide, and budget, and for the fire stations too. So so that's, to answer your question, I think that we can probably do those types of things, and the people that are needed for this is more not the engineering type and designing type, it's more like staff type like myself and like some people in my office that I think can spread the load around a little bit.
Okay.
And also, we'll be having stuff coming off, the books, in about a year or so, as far as the high school, the 1928, and stuff like that. So as we move further with the ad hoc committees, stuff will, obviously fall off, and then these things can go, if they choose to be forward
Yeah.
by
I
the
think
council at that
January-
time.
What did we say, January 2026
A lot of the projects
Projects.
have been completed.
completed?
All right.
So I got a question about the firehouses, if I may.
Certainly.
The right place. I heard that there was a building that both the Unionville Museum and that the fire department was looking at, for space. And I was wondering if that's going to be part of the conversation of the ad hoc committee?
100%.
Okay, so no decisions have been made there?
No.
So I was just curious, so,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. Do we need to finish out the motion? I feel like sort of like the question and the answers sort of leave us in limbo.
I mean, again, if we're all in consensus, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're pushing ahead, I think that's all I really needed at this point in time.
Okay.
Excuse me, Joe, can I make a suggestion or a comment? I know we're not appointing anyone yet, but when we do the sidewalk committee, I think it would be important to have people from someone from Second and First, because I think the Unionville sidewalk issue is different from the Farmington sidewalk. At least in terms of, I've heard people complain, that side got sidewalks, how come we didn't? So,
Well, yeah, I would hope
Yeah.
that with the part
Yeah.
that we know,
Yeah.
that we
But-
figure out that, one's,
The
the
survey,
second
too,
district or
will
first.
get a cross-section of
Okay.
respondents from Unionville and Farmington and, different ages and demographics. So that's a really key part of the survey.
Yeah, and I think the hard part too, I think for a couple years that we went through the Main Street one, that was, a state grant, and a lot of people didn't realize that was all
Yeah.
grant money going in over there, and the same for the grant money on 177 for,
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
bigger
so we did-
sidewalks for the
we
wheelchairs and
did the center
stuff.
of Unionville, and we did
Yeah.
the Main Street in Farmington. So
So,
we
those
have
bigger
tried to do
projects.
the.
I know we have.
Yeah,
I just
they don't.
hear from
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people.
yes,
And
exactly.
then I try to educate them,
Yeah.
but
Joe,
Still.
that's a great question. Is there any grant money that we might be able to take advantage of for doing these surveys?
I don't,
No.
I mean, We can look. I
Yeah.
don't, not off the top of my head that I don't
just
know any of
curious.
any, but I could, it's always worth a look to see if there's
Yeah.
something.
Just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. And if we covered those, we are good to go there, correct? So we're all good. We're all in consensus with forming them. So obviously you can talk amongst yourselves and figure out who wants to be part of what, and then we'll have it all formed in, you said January, correct?
We hope that maybe in the December
Well, we
council.
can start gathering
Yeah.
names now and
Yeah.
then
We're
have it
gonna
all
try to
ready to
work on the
flow.
charge, so we'll have the charge for the both subcommittees.
All right. Perfect. And I guess we are done with that, with D.
Yeah.
H, we don't have any new business, do we, Kathy?
Sorry, we're not talking about Parsons? The additional stuff? on 'em?
Do you want the strategic plan?
No, the only thing that I would mention
I'm
is
sorry.
that on goal one, it is my understanding, and it's coming towards the October meeting, is that if many, and you, maybe you all know, is that if you remember, the Historical Society was gonna, put the house on the Parsons property, and my understanding is that they're no longer doing that. So that they are, looking to sell that piece of property and buy another piece of real estate. So some of the things with that Parsons property that has been
That was
discussed.
because they would have to get an egress from the state. The state was going to give them an egress, but it was like a lease, right? It was like a 50-year
Yes,
lease.
yeah.
And so they didn't like that.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the background is, but I do know that it's coming up at the next agenda that the house that is, that they were going to make the historic district, they want to put it in the historic district, and my understanding is that they're going to sell it. So it's, again, so the Parsons, that whole thing about what was going to go on, I think it's not as crucial a timeline. So that's what I've heard.
I misread the agenda anyway. I'm okay. Didn't mean to drag us back. On to H, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Does there need to be a vote on D or no? There is a motion, but I don't know if you're voting on anything.
I don't think you need a vote. No.
But we're all in line. Perfect. All right. So there's no new business. So I guess we will call for an adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn the September 24th, 2024 Town Council meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Have a good night.